Time magazine has named The Protester as its Person of the Year for 2011. And if my guest Gerald Celente is right, 2012 is going to bring much more of the same. Gerald, I'll give you some credit. Last year at this time, you were talking about social unrest was going to increase, and we've seen it in the Arab world in the spring, and certainly here in the United States with the Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Portland, Occupy LA, etc., movements. Are we going to see more of this in the coming year?
Yes, Time magazine is not on time. They're just calling it protesters. We're calling it the invasion of the Occupy.
The Occupy.
The Occupy. The very weakness that the people think of the Occupy movement, not having a leader, not having one message, is in fact its very strength. For example, you take the WikiLeaks, big news and doing a lot of, really important information coming out. But it died because they cut the head of the leader off. The Octopi doesn't have a head to cut
So
off.
Occupy means multiple occupations?
Exactly, the tentacles. They're reaching everywhere. It's been in over 90 countries and 1,700 cities. You cut off one tentacle, another one grows. There's no one base. There's no one message. This is huge, and it's just going to continue to spread. Time magazine has part of it right. Protesters. Look, the entire, as we're speaking, the European Union
is collapsing. Maybe, yes.
But it's rough out there.
Yeah.
You saw lines the other day in banks in Lithuania. People are grabbing their money out of the banks in Europe, particularly Greece and Italy.
Right, and there's big protests in Russia as well, where you've had our authoritarian rule for a decade or so, and now the people are saying, you know what, we've had enough of this, which is not. I don't think many people expected that coming into this year.
And then you look at the Occupy movements to continue to go on. They close one down, boom, there's another one in Oakland. They're closing the ports. Again, all different reasons. You're going to start seeing it really start spreading in the spring, particularly with the students, because we're calling them Generation F. F,
yes.
Because they got a load of debt. Tuition prices are going up. They're holding university degrees in worthlessness. And they're going to really start getting angry. So you're going to start seeing more campus occupations, like the one we saw out there in Berkeley a little while ago. This thing is going to continue to spread, and it's going to go worldwide. I have a very simple saying. When the money on the top stops flowing down to the man on the street, the blood starts flowing in the streets.
So you do think it's going to get violent, going to get ugly? I mean, we've certainly seen that in many European capitals. We've seen a little bit of violence here in the States, but to this point, mostly it's been relatively calm.
Well, the violence is becoming mostly from the enforcers.
Absolutely. Maybe the police cracking down.
The political and financial crime bosses. And the police better watch out, too, because they're protecting the wrong guys. Because they're going to lose their pensions, too. Everything is in the financial system right now is very, very shaky, as we all know. So the only violence that we see is either going to be those wonderful agents provocateurs that they always bring in there with their hoods on to make it seem like it's violent, and the media focuses on that, or the violence coming from the police, as we saw with that Pig Pike shaking up the pepper spray can.
Right, at UC Davis.
Yeah, so that's where it's coming from.
Right.
I mean, these are a bunch of kids, and
right.
It's not violent.
So to that point, even people who support what the protesters are protesting and want them to succeed say they don't really have a plan or a goal. Do you think they need to say, here's an agenda, these are the things we want, or is it just more they're going to be agitating for change and protesting the way our society has become?
You mentioned it. You said you just saw something happening in Russia. That was that issue. In Portland, in Oakland with the ports, that's another issue. On the Wall Street one, it's the greed issue. And by the way, I heard Jamie Dimon, the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, and he's saying he doesn't get it why people are angry, with people that are successful and making a lot of money. Guess what? The greedy never get it.
Right.
The gap between the rich and the poor in this country is the widest in any of the industrialized nations. This whole thing is really, really, you have an off with their heads moment that's being generated now, that these people way up at the top that are not down near the streets better get a little bit more sensitive to.
Right, so what kind of factor will this be in the 2012 elections?
it's a rough one to call, but it probably, it's a good point. It probably is going to play a role. But as we have it now, with just whoever the leader is right now in the Republicans, it's not going to probably.
It's not going to benefit them, I would think.
Yeah, so they're not going to see anything in it for them with either of the Republicans and the Democrats that are in control now. If you had somebody from the Republican Party that was way different from who you have now, Newt Gingrich, I mean, you're not going to see the Occupy people going out for him. And they've already turned their back on Obama.
Right, that's my point. So they're going to, if there was some independent candidate, maybe you're saying they might rally behind them, but right now that person isn't on the scene.
Ron Paul is always a possibility there.
He does generate a lot of support, especially from the young people. And if you're saying if they're going to get on the streets,
yeah, the young people. I mean, and for the issues that he's particularly, the war, the Fed, and ending the war on drugs, which is a big issue when you're a young person.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to leave it there, Sean. Thanks very much.